Welcome to Top 10 Emotional Comeback. I was standing in the kitchen that Tuesday morning, arranging fresh tulips in my favorite ceramic vase, when my phone shattered the silence. The number flashing on the screen was one I didn't recognize, but something in my gut told me to answer it anyway. Mr. Harrison. The voice on the other end was professional, measured, almost too calm. This is Dr. Chen from St. Michael's Hospital. I'm calling about your wife, Elizabeth. The vase slipped through my fingers before she could finish. Water and bright yellow petals scattered across the oak floors that Elizabeth had spent an entire summer convincing me to install instead of the cheaper laminate I'd suggested. I'm very sorry to tell you this, but your wife suffered a massive cardiac arrest approximately 35 minutes ago. We did everything in our power, but we weren't able to save her. I'm deeply sorry for your loss. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. Elizabeth? My Elizabeth of 43 years? Gone? Just like that? That's not possible. I heard myself saying, my voice sounding strange and distant. She left for her reading group this morning. She was perfectly fine. She was laughing about something her friend Diane said about some mystery novel. I understand this is incredibly shocking, Mr. Harrison. Is there someone who can bring you to the hospital? You really shouldn't be driving yourself right now. I don't remember ending that call. I don't remember dialing our daughter Sophie's number, leaving a stammering message when it went straight to voicemail. I don't remember getting in the car or navigating the familiar streets of Richmond Hill, but somehow I found myself standing in a blindingly white corridor, a young doctor with compassionate eyes guiding me toward a room I never wanted to enter. There she was, my Elizabeth, under a crisp white sheet, looking so still it seemed wrong, fundamentally wrong. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. Everyone at the funeral would later say she looked peaceful, like she was sleeping. But they were wrong. Elizabeth was never peaceful. She was energy and warmth and laughter that echoed through every room of our home. This pale, motionless figure under harsh fluorescent lighting, this wasn't my wife. It couldn't be. We'll need you to formally identify her, Mr. Harrison, the doctor said gently. And there are some documents that require your signature. Please, take whatever time you need. Time. As if time meant anything anymore. As if the world hadn't just stopped spinning entirely. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and tried Sophie again. Voicemail. I tried her office line. Voicemail. Finally, I typed out a text message, my thumbs fumbling over the letters. Your mother is gone. Please call me immediately. 3 dots appeared at the bottom of the screen. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then finally, what? What happened? I called her right back, and she answered on the first ring. I could hear music playing somewhere behind her, voices talking and laughing like the world was still normal. Sophie, sweetheart. My voice cracked. Your mom had a heart attack. She's gone. Honey, I'm at St. Michael's Hospital right now. Silence. Complete, terrible silence. Then, oh my God. Dad, When? When did this happen? This morning, around 10:15. Where are you right now? Can you get to the hospital? Another pause, longer this time. The background music swelled for a moment, then became muffled, like she'd moved somewhere quieter. Dad, I'm in Quebec City. Remember? I told you last Tuesday. Marcus and I came up here for his firm's annual retreat. We just arrived yesterday afternoon. Marcus, her husband of 4 years. I tried to like him. I really had, for Sophie's sake. But there was something about the way he constantly checked his phone during family dinners, the way his hand would grip Sophie's arm just a touch too firmly when he wanted to leave somewhere. Can you catch a flight back? Your mother? Sophie, I need you here with me. Of course, Dad. Of course. Let me find Marcus and we'll check flights right away. I'll call you back in 15 minutes. I promise. 20 at most. Okay, sweetheart. I love you, Dad. The line went dead. 15 minutes turned into an hour. Then 2 hours. I sat in the hospital's small chapel, my phone placed face up on the wooden pew beside me, screen bright, willing it to ring. Other families drifted in and out around me, Some weeping, some laughing with relief at good news. A chaplain approached and asked if I needed anything. I just shook my head, unable to form words. When Sophie finally called back, I nearly dropped the phone answering it so quickly. Dad, I'm so incredibly sorry this took so long. The flight situation is absolutely chaotic right now. There's this massive winter storm moving across Ontario and Quebec. Every single flight into Toronto is grounded until at least tomorrow evening. But I'll be on the very first plane out, I swear. I wasn't holding up. I was sinking. But what I said was, I'm managing. The funeral home needs decisions made. Your mother's sister is flying in from Calgary. I really need help with all this, Sophie. I know. Dad, I'm so sorry. Just do whatever you think Mom would have wanted. You knew her better than anyone in the world. I trust you completely. Trust. The word felt hollow, like an echo in an empty room. The next 4 days blurred together into an endless stream of phone calls and paperwork and sympathetic head tilts from people whose names I couldn't remember. Elizabeth's reading group brought casseroles that filled our refrigerator. Our neighbors, the Chens, offered to help with yard work. Everyone asked the same question, where's Sophie? She's in Quebec City, I'd explain, flying back tomorrow. But tomorrow kept stretching further away. First it was a storm. Understandable. Then Marcus got severe food poisoning. Then their dog sitter canceled, and they couldn't possibly leave their golden retriever alone. Each excuse arrived via text message. Never a phone call where I might hear the guilt or hesitation in her voice. The funeral was scheduled for Saturday, 5 days after Elizabeth's death. Sophie promised, absolutely swore, she'd be there. Saturday morning, I stood alone in our bedroom, struggling with my tie. Elizabeth used to do this for me every time I needed to dress up. 43 years of her gentle fingers adjusting the knot just right, smoothing down my collar, telling me I looked handsome even after my hair went silver and my waistline expanded. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Dad, I'm so sorry. Marcus came down with the same stomach bug, and we're both really sick. I can barely leave the bathroom. There's absolutely no way I can get on a plane like this. I'm devastated. Please tell everyone I love them, and I'm thinking about Mom constantly. I read it 3 times. The funeral started in 90 minutes. My hands trembled as I typed back, this is your mother's funeral. 3 dots. Disappeared. Appeared. Disappeared. Finally, I know, Dad, I feel absolutely horrible, but I'm literally sick. What do you want me to do? What did I want? I wanted my daughter at her mother's funeral. I wanted her to put down her phone and her excuses and be present for the woman who gave her life. But what I typed was, feel better. What else could I say? The funeral was small but dignified, exactly how Elizabeth would have wanted it. Her sister Sandra sat beside me in the front pew, occasionally reaching over to squeeze my hand when the tears came. Elizabeth's reading group filled 2 entire rows. Some of my former colleagues from the accounting firm showed up. Our neighbor's daughter played violin, something Elizabeth would have absolutely loved. And through all of it, the same question over and over, where's Sophie? She's ill, I'd say, forcing a smile, in Quebec City. She desperately wanted to be here. At first, I believed it. I had to believe it. The alternative was too devastating to consider. The reception was held at our house afterward. Sandra helped me arrange all the food people had brought, the dining room table overflowing with casseroles and salads and desserts. I was carrying a platter of sandwiches when I heard Diane from Elizabeth's reading group talking to another woman in the kitchen, their voices low but clear. Did you happen to see Sophie's Instagram? Posted just 2 hours ago. My blood turned to ice. The daughter? The one who couldn't make it to the funeral. That's the one. She's at some fancy resort in Mont-Tremblant. Swimming pools, selfies, champagne glasses, the whole thing. Can you even imagine? Her mother's funeral is literally happening right now, and she's posting vacation photos. I set the platter down very carefully, terrified I might drop it. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone. I didn't follow Sophie on Instagram myself. Social media had always confused me. But Elizabeth did. I logged into Elizabeth's account. The password was still saved, Sophie Grace 2000. our daughter's name and birth year. Sophie's latest post loaded, and the entire room seemed to tilt sideways. There she was, golden and glowing in a black bikini, a martini glass in one hand, perched on the edge of an infinity pool with snow-capped mountains stretching out behind her. Marcus beside her, his arm wrapped around her waist, both of them laughing at something just off camera. The caption read, "Sometimes you just need to disconnect and recharge. Sparkles grateful for this amazing surprise getaway person with praying hands. #blessed #mon trembling #living my best life." Posted 43 minutes ago. While I was standing at a podium, voice breaking, eulogizing her mother, the comments were already rolling in. Friends congratulating her on the vacation. Someone asking if this was for her birthday. Sophie responding with heart emojis, and Marcus spoils me rotten 2 hearts. Not a single mention of Elizabeth. Not one word about loss or grief or family. Nothing. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. Somehow I pasted on a smile. Accepted more condolences. Thanked people for coming. Hugged Elizabeth's sister. All while my chest felt like it was collapsing inward, crushing my heart into dust. That night, after everyone finally left and Sandra went back to her hotel room, I sat in Elizabeth's favorite chair by the window, the one where she'd read every single evening, and I called Sophie. She answered, sounding breathless and happy. Music thumped loudly in the background, people laughing, glasses clinking. "Hey, Dad. How are you? How did everything go?" "You tell me," I said quietly. "How was the pool?" Silence. The music continued. Someone shrieking with laughter somewhere close by. "What?" Morn tremblant. The resort. The champagne. The infinity pool. "How was it, Sophie?" More silence. Longer this time. Then, very quietly, "Dad, I can explain. You posted photos of yourself in a bikini drinking champagne while I was burying your mother." "Dad, you don't understand." Marcus surprised me with this trip before we even knew about Mom. And the resort has this really strict no refund policy, and we'd already paid like $3,000. And your mother is dead, Sophie. "I know that." Her voice rose. "God, you think I don't know that? But me being miserable at a funeral wasn't going to bring her back, was it? And I am sick. I have a terrible cold. Ryan just thought some sunshine might help me feel better. That's all." I hung up. She called back immediately. I stared at her name on the screen. My baby girl, the child Elizabeth and I prayed for, struggled for, loved beyond all measure. I let it ring. She called 7 more times. Each time I watched her name flash and disappear. Flash and disappear. Finally, a text message. "I know you're angry, but you're being completely unreasonable. I'm grieving too, just in my own way. I'll call you when you calm down and can have an actual conversation." I deleted it. The next week passed in a thick fog. Sandra stayed a few extra days, but eventually she had to fly back to Calgary, back to her own life, her own family. And I was alone in the house, surrounded by Elizabeth's things, her absence screaming from every corner, every photograph, every piece of furniture. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Spent hours going through old photo albums, watching home videos of Sophie as a little girl, so bright-eyed and full of joy and promise. Where had I lost her? When had she become this stranger who valued Instagram likes over her own mother? On the 8th day after Elizabeth's death, I received a call from Rebecca Winters, Elizabeth's attorney and longtime friend. "David, I'm so terribly sorry for your loss. I know this is an incredibly difficult time, but we need to schedule a reading of Elizabeth's will. Are you available this coming Thursday at 2 o'clock? Will? Elizabeth had a will. She updated it about 7 months ago. Actually, she didn't tell you. No. She never? No. Oh, well, yes, she did. And she was very specific that both you and Sophie need to be present for the reading. Is Sophie back in Toronto? Sophie is in Quebec City, I said flatly. She didn't come to the funeral. A long pause on the other end. I see. Well, the will specifically requires that she be present. It's quite important. David, do you think you could ask her to come? I almost laughed. It would have sounded bitter and broken. I can ask. I texted Sophie. Mom's lawyer needs us both for the will reading Thursday at 2 p.m. Her office downtown. The response was immediate. Can't make it. Marcus and I are extending our trip another week. Can she just email me whatever I need to sign? I forwarded the message to Rebecca. She called me back within 5 minutes. David, I cannot stress this enough. It is absolutely critical that Sophie be present. Elizabeth was extraordinarily specific about this. Tell Sophie that if she's not there, she forfeits her entire inheritance. And it's substantial. That got her attention. Fine. Sophie texted an hour later. I'll be there. Thursday morning, I put on the same suit I'd worn to the funeral, the fabric still smelling faintly of the church's incense. I drove into downtown Toronto, found parking near the office tower, rode the elevator to the 14th floor with my heart pounding in my chest. Sophie was already there when I arrived, sitting in the waiting area, scrolling through her phone. She looked tan, rested, glowing with health. Happy. She glanced up when I walked in. Hey, Dad. Sophie. Look, about the funeral, Not here, I said quietly. Rebecca's assistant led us into a sleek conference room. Rebecca was already seated at the head of the table, a thick stack of documents arranged in front of her, her expression professionally neutral, though her eyes, when they met mine, held deep sympathy. Thank you both for coming, Rebecca began. I know this is difficult. Elizabeth was a dear friend, and I miss her terribly, but she left very specific instructions, and I intend to honor them exactly as she wished. She opened the top folder with careful precision. Elizabeth's estate is valued at approximately $3.1 million. This includes your house in Richmond Hill, her investment portfolio, her portion of David's pension, and a substantial life insurance policy. Sophie leaned forward slightly, suddenly very interested. Normally in cases like this, Rebecca continued, everything would pass to the surviving spouse, with provisions for the child upon the spouse's death. She paused, her eyes moving between us. However, Elizabeth had concerns, and she did something unusual. Rebecca slid a USB drive across the polished table toward me. Before we proceed with a formal reading, Elizabeth asked that you both watch this video together. She filmed it in this very room 7 months ago. My hand shook as I plugged the drive into the laptop Rebecca provided. The screen flickered, and then there she was, Elizabeth, my Elizabeth, sitting in this exact conference room, wearing the green cardigan I'd given her for our anniversary. Her hair was pulled back in that way she always wore it when she meant business. She looked tired, but her eyes were determined. Hello, my darlings, her recorded voice said, and tears immediately sprang to my eyes. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. David, my love, I'm so sorry to leave you. 43 years wasn't nearly enough. I'd have taken 100 more if I could. I couldn't breathe, couldn't swallow. Sophie, sweetheart, I love you more than life itself. You know that. You've always known that. Sophie's hand moved to cover her mouth. But I also know you, really know you, and I know that if I died suddenly, you might not prioritize being there. For me, for your father. Sophie's face went deathly pale. So I did something I'm not entirely proud of, Elizabeth continued on screen, her voice steady. 7 months ago, I was diagnosed with a serious heart condition. My cardiologist gave me maybe a few years, possibly more with aggressive treatment and lifestyle changes. But I had a choice to make. My mind was reeling. 7 months ago, she'd known for 7 months. I could tell you both, and what you spend those years treating me like fragile glass, pitying me, rearranging your entire life around my impending death. Or I could live fully, normally, squeezing every drop of joy out of whatever time I had left, while also preparing for what came next. Oh my God, Sophie whispered beside me. I chose to live, Elizabeth said, and even through the screen I could see the fierce determination in her eyes that I'd fallen in love with 43 years ago. But I also chose to prepare, and part of that preparation was creating a test. Sophie's hands were shaking now. Sophie, I know you love me. I've never doubted that. But I needed to know you'd be there when it truly mattered. That you'd put down your phone, your carefully curated life, your husband who I've never quite trusted, and be present for the people who love you. A sound escaped Sophie's throat, something between a gasp and a sob. David doesn't know this yet, Elizabeth continued, looking directly into the camera, directly at me. But I set up a monitoring system with Dr. Chen at St. Michael's. When I die, and it will most likely be from this heart condition, possibly quite suddenly, he has instructions to call you first, David. And then we wait. The video paused. Elizabeth's face froze on the screen, eyes locked on us. Rebecca spoke into the heavy silence. What happens next depends entirely on what actually happened. David, I apologize that you're finding out this way. Elizabeth made me promise not to tell you under any circumstances. She wanted. Rebecca's professional composure cracked slightly. She wanted your grief to be genuine. She didn't want Sophie to have any reason to suspect this wasn't completely real. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't process what I was hearing. So, Rebecca said quietly, carefully, did Sophie come to the funeral? No, I whispered. She was in Mont Tremblant, posting photos from a resort pool while I eulogized her mother. Rebecca nodded slowly, sadly, and pressed play. Elizabeth's face came back to life on the screen. If Sophie came, Video Elizabeth said, if she dropped absolutely everything and flew home and stood beside you, David, supporting you through the worst day of your life, then everything goes to both of you exactly as originally planned. She receives a full inheritance, no conditions, no strings attached. Sophie sagged slightly with relief. But if she didn't come? Elizabeth's voice hardened, her jaw setting in that way it did when she'd made up her mind about something. If she made excuses, if she prioritized a vacation or a business trip or anything else over being there for you in your darkest hour, then the terms changed dramatically. Rebecca handed me a document. I scanned it, the legal language swimming before my eyes. In the event that Sophie Harrison fails to attend my funeral or be present within 72 hours of my death, I read aloud, my voice shaking. The following provisions take effect. The house in Richmond Hill, all investment accounts, and my life insurance policy, totaling approximately $3.1 million, go entirely to my husband, David Harrison, with absolutely no obligation to leave any portion to Sophie upon his death. No, Sophie breathed. Sophie Harrison will receive a sum of $1,000 with the following note attached. I continued reading, my voice breaking. This is the value you place on our family. I hope it was worth it. Sophie stood up so violently her chair fell backward with a crash that echoed through the conference room. You can't do this. She can't do this. It's a completely legal will, Rebecca said calmly, though I could see the sympathy in her eyes. Properly witnessed, notarized, ironclad. I helped her write it myself. Elizabeth was of completely sound mind and body. She had every right to leave her estate to whomever she chose. Dad! Sophie whirled toward me, tears streaming down her face, mascara running in black rivers. Dad, please. This is insane. You can't let her do this to me. I was sick. Marcus and I were both really sick. And the storm. And the Instagram post. I said quietly, you posted photos from an infinity pool while I was standing at a podium, crying, trying to find words to describe what your mother meant to me, to the world. It wasn't like that. The post was scheduled earlier. I forgot it was going to go up. You called me when I begged you to come home. I interrupted, my voice still quiet but harder now. You heard my voice breaking. You knew I was alone, drowning in grief, planning your mother's funeral by myself, having to pick out her casket alone, having to choose which dress she'd wear for eternity. Alone. And you chose champagne and mountains and infinity pools. I was scared. Sophie sobbed, her whole body shaking. I couldn't handle it. Death terrifies me. Funerals terrify me. And Marcus said. She stopped abruptly, eyes going wide. What did Marcus say, Sophie? She looked down at her hands, twisting them together. He said. What did Marcus say? He said there was no point rushing back, she whispered. That you'd understand. That Mom was already gone and being miserable at a funeral wouldn't change anything. And he'd already paid for the resort and it was non-refundable and the inheritance. I asked quietly, did Marcus mention the inheritance? Did he tell you to wait, to see what was in the will before making any decisions? Sophie's silence told me everything I needed to know. Rebecca cleared her throat. There's more on the video. She pressed play again, and Elizabeth's face filled the screen once more. She looked directly into the camera, directly at Sophie. Sweetheart, if you're hearing this part, it means you didn't come. And I want you to understand exactly why I'm doing this. It's not about the money. It has never been about the money. Sophie was crying openly now, makeup destroyed, face blotchy and red. It's about priorities, Elizabeth continued. It's about showing up for the people who love you, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when it's inconvenient, even when your husband, who I strongly suspect is controlling you far more than you realize, tells you not to bother. No, Sophie whispered. No, no, no. I've watched Marcus isolate you from us for 4 years now, Elizabeth said, and her voice was filled with a sadness that broke my heart all over again. Subtle things at first. Missing Christmas Eve because of a work thing. Skipping our anniversary dinner because he wasn't feeling social. Always having a reason why you can't visit, can't call, can't be present with us. And I watched you change, my bright, loving daughter, into someone I barely recognize. Someone who posts her perfect life online but can't pick up the phone to tell her mother she loves her. My chest ached. I'd seen it too, seen all of it, but I dismissed it. Told myself Sophie was just busy, just building her new life. So this is my final gift to you, Elizabeth said, and her voice was gentle now, loving. A wake-up call, a chance to see clearly what your priorities have become. Choose wisely what you value, sweetheart, because family, real family, the people who love you unconditionally, who will be there when everything else falls apart, that's all that truly matters in the end. And if you've lost sight of that truth, then no amount of money will ever fill the hole it leaves in your soul. The video ended. The screen went black. The conference room was completely silent except for Sophie's ragged breathing and quiet sobs. I loved her, Sophie whispered, her voice broken. I love Mom so much. Then why weren't you there? I asked. She had no answer. Just stood there, tears falling, completely shattered. Rebecca stood, gathering her papers with practiced efficiency. David, the estate is yours to do with as you wish. Sophie, I'll have my assistant prepare your check for $1,000. It should be ready by early next week. Wait, I said. Both women looked at me, surprised. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, beyond the tears and the designer clothes and the perfect Instagram facade. I saw the little girl who used to pick dandelions from our yard and present them to me like they were roses, calling them flowers for Daddy. The teenager who cried in my arms when her first boyfriend shattered her heart. The young woman who'd walked down the aisle 4 years ago, absolutely glowing with happiness that I desperately hoped was real. And I saw who she'd become. Saw Marcus's influence in every excuse, every shifted priority, every missed call and canceled visit. Saw my wife's devastating wisdom in creating this impossible test. But I also saw Elizabeth in Sophie's eyes. Saw the potential for change, for growth, for becoming again the person she was meant to be. No, I said finally, I won't do this. Sophie's head snapped up. Dad. Elizabeth wanted you to learn something crucial, to wake up and see what was happening to your life. But she also loved you more than anything in this world, and so do I. So here's what's going to happen instead. I turned to Rebecca. Can the will itself be contested or modified? Not the will itself, no. But you could choose to give Sophie money from your inheritance if you wanted to. No, I said firmly. Not gift. Earn. I looked back at Sophie, holding her tear-filled gaze. Your mother left you $1,000. You'll get exactly that, just as she specified in her will. But if you want more, if you want to prove that you've actually learned something from all this, that you've heard what she was trying to tell you, then you need to show me. Show her memory. How? Sophie whispered, her voice barely audible. Move back to Toronto. Not with Marcus. By yourself. Get your own apartment. Nothing fancy. Something you can actually afford on a real salary. Find a real job, an actual career, not whatever online influencer thing you're doing now. Come to Sunday dinners every single week. Be present. Be family. Do that for 1 full year, genuinely, with absolutely no expectation of inheritance at the end. And then we'll talk about your mother's will and what happened to everything when I die. Maybe I'll leave you everything. Maybe I won't. But you'll have earned the chance to find out. Sophie stared at me, tears still streaming, her whole world clearly crumbling. Marcus will never agree to that. Never. Then you have a choice to make, I said, and I felt Elizabeth's strength flowing through me, her wisdom guiding my words. The same choice your mother left you. Your husband or your family. An easy, comfortable life built on missed funerals and Instagram likes and champagne by infinity pools, or a real life built on showing up, being present, loving people even when it's hard. Rebecca was watching me with something that looked like deep respect. David, are you absolutely sure about this? Elizabeth spent 43 years making me a better man, I said, and I felt the truth of it in my bones. The least I can do is honor her final wish. Not by punishing our daughter, but by giving her a real chance to become who she was always meant to be. I stood and walked over to Sophie, placed my hands gently on her shoulders, looked into her red-rimmed, devastated eyes. I love you, sweetheart. Your mother loved you with everything she had. But love isn't enough if you're not willing to be present for it, to fight for it, to choose it. So choose. Choose who you want to be. Choose the life you want to live. And know that I'll be here, waiting, hoping with everything in my heart that you choose us. I left the conference room, left Rebecca to handle all the legal paperwork, left Sophie sobbing in her chair. That was 3 months ago. Sophie left Marcus 2 weeks after the will reading. When she told him she was moving back to Toronto, that she needed time alone to figure out who she really was, he showed his true colors in exactly the way Elizabeth had predicted he would. He screamed. He threw things. He told Sophie she was being manipulated, that her mother was controlling her from beyond the grave, that she was throwing away everything they'd built together. When Sophie stood firm, insisted this was what she needed to do, he told her she was making the biggest mistake of her life, that she'd come crawling back to him within a month, that she was nothing without him. The divorce papers were filed 3 weeks later. Sophie got a small apartment in Toronto, a tiny one-bedroom place in the annex, nothing like the luxury condo she'd shared with Marcus in Quebec City. She got a job at a publishing house, entry-level, answering phones and making coffee and learning the business from the ground up. Nothing glamorous, nothing Instagram-worthy. And every Sunday at 5 o'clock, without fail, she shows up at the house in Richmond Hill with a bag of groceries and helps me cook dinner. We talk, really talk, about Elizabeth, about the years Sophie lost Marcus's subtle control, about grief and regret and second chances and forgiveness. Some Sundays she cries, the grief still raw and overwhelming. Some Sundays we laugh, sharing memories of Elizabeth's truly terrible singing voice and her obsession with true crime podcasts and the way she'd hum while cooking. Some Sundays we just sit in comfortable silence, the way I used to sit with her mother. And that's enough. Last week, Sophie brought wildflowers, dandelions actually, just like when she was small. She put them in the vase by Elizabeth's favorite chair, the one by the window. I used to pick these for you when I was little, she said quietly, arranging them with careful hands. Do you remember, Dad? I remember everything. Sweetheart, I told her, my voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry, she said, and it wasn't the first time, but it felt different somehow, deeper. For all of it. For not being there when you needed me most. When Mom needed me. For choosing wrong. For being blind to what was happening to me. I know, honey, I know you are. She turned to look at me, her eyes so much like Elizabeth's it hurt. Do you think she'd be proud of me? Now, after everything. I thought about Elizabeth, her fierce wisdom, her impossible, beautiful faith in people's ability to change and grow, her understanding that sometimes the hardest lessons, the ones that break you open, are the most important ones we ever learn. I think she'd be proud of the choice you made, I said carefully. And I think she was always proud of you, Sophie. That's exactly why she pushed you so hard, because she knew you were capable of so much more than you were settling for. Sophie nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Will you really leave me the inheritance after the year is up? I smiled. Ask me in 9 months. Dad. But Sophie, listen to me. The inheritance isn't the point. It never was. I know, she said, and I could hear the truth in her voice. I know that now. I finally understand. Tell me in the comments what you think about Elizabeth's decision. And if you've dealt with something similar, maybe someone who had to make an impossible choice to wake someone they loved up to reality, share your story. You're not alone in this. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground, choosing what matters, and reclaiming your life. We cooked together that night, Elizabeth's famous lasagna, the recipe she perfected over 30 years of trial and error and family dinners. Sophie set the table with Elizabeth's good china, the set she'd inherited from her own grandmother, pieces that held generations of family history. And for the first time since Elizabeth died, sitting across from my daughter in the home we'd all built together, I felt something like peace settling into my bones. Not happiness, not yet, maybe not for a long time, but peace, hope, the possibility of healing. Elizabeth's final gift to us wasn't the money. It was never about the money. It was the truth. And sometimes, sometimes the truth costs everything you thought you had. It strips you bare, breaks you down, forces you to look at yourself and see who you've really become. But sometimes, if you're brave enough to face it, if you're strong enough to let it change you, that truth gives you back what you thought you'd lost forever. My daughter, my family, my hope for the future. Margaret would be proud. Ha ha ha. She'd probably say I was too soft, that I should have made Sophie wait the full year before telling her I were proud of her choices. But then she'd smile that smile, the one that lit up her whole face, and she'd squeeze my hand and tell me I did good. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.